This week in our Front Porch Faith Bible study, we conquered chapter 6, called Evangelism, the Importance of Inviting. I want to share with you a verse from Jeremiah 29:11-13 that this chapter is based on. I love it when I can dig into my Bible. Jeremiah 29:11-13. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. When we seek with all our heart, we will find him. What great words to help us find the purpose he's set for us. Even before we were born, he had already had a plan for your life. Every year we study about Christ's birth at Christmas time and the stories of his life as he fulfilled his purpose and died at the end of our Lent season on Good Friday. In John 17:4, Jesus prays his final prayer. And in that prayer he said, I glorified you on earth, having accomplished the work that you gave me to do. Now, in this final prayer, Jesus gives an account of his earthly mission to the Father who sent him. First, he prays in verses 1-5 for himself, then for his disciples in verses 6-19, and finally for later believers in verses 20-26. What's funny is Jesus in his life reached out. He invited people to know God. He lived out his purpose, but he had an advantage over us. He already knew his purpose. But then we have us who fumble through life and we try things and they don't work. We just don't feel right. Things don't work out the way we want them to. It's kind of a crapshoot. We try something, we miss, we try something again, we're not quite fulfilled. But guess what? We can make our journey to find our purpose even less messy and less cumbersome by listening to Jeremiah 29:11-13. The simple words, seek me with all your heart and you will find me. When you do this, you give God the glory with your life, and he will reveal to you instances, times, places, and people with whom to share his gospel. And to God, that person isn't just one person or one instance. When you share what you know about God and give your glory to him, he's in celebration with you. Just like the parable of the lost sheep. Because why wouldn't we want to share in God's grace, forgiveness, and peace? Just like the parable, you can reach even just one person, and God is happy. And you are fulfilling God's purpose in your life. You don't have to go door to door. You don't have to shout like a TV evangelist. But what do we do? How do we do it? Well, in our book, Life Worth Leading by Eric Burtness, in chapter 6, Robert Driver Bishop writes, if you were to put together a simple account of the life of Jesus, what scenes and stories would you include? What is the single theme you would use to identify Jesus? How would you organize your thoughts? Do you know someone who needs to hear that story? How would you tell it? What would you tell? I think about that story and which one for me stands out. And I always think of Jesus washing the disciples' feet. And how at first the disciples didn't understand that they thought that they should be washing his feet. He was the teacher, he was the rabbi. But he said no. He modeled for them that he wanted them to go out and put themselves below the others. That we don't need the title, we don't need to be above other people. We need to be right there with them at their level, and we need to wash their feet. So for me, the story of Jesus washing feet is significant. And I've inserted that here and there throughout the different talks that I've had with people. Of course, mostly at church, but sometimes in my workplace when people are struggling. But it's interesting, and what I would like to know is, what story do you relate to? What parable in the Bible? What verse? Is there something that stands out for you? Is there a Bible story that you tend to think about more often than others? And what I'd like you to do is, if you can write a message to me below in the comments, what story would it be for you that stands out? And what story would you share with others to tell about Jesus' life? So thank you ahead of time for doing that, because I think that will be really interesting for us to find out how many different stories we all can relate to and which ones are first and foremost in our minds. Also in chapter 6, Walt Kelstead and Mike Breen write in their book, A Passionate Life, about presence evangelism. Presence evangelism happens when you are simply present in a situation excuse me, with an individual or a group. So evangelism doesn't have to be just going out and inviting someone to hear the word of God. Evangelism can be just being present. Pay attention to the person or group that is put in your path. They're there for a reason. Just being there to listen may be all that God needs you to do to fulfill his purpose. Listening may just give you a cue to give your testimony to how God has worked in your life. And when you share how God has worked in your life, you open up a door. And isn't that what we want to do? Don't we want to invite others to the glory of God's peace, the joy that he gives, his saving grace? So I encourage you to take a step to fulfill God's purpose in your life. For I know the plans I have for you, plans for a purpose and a future. Glorify God with your life. That's evangelism. Thanks for sharing with me. Have a good week.